So good morning, friends. 10 o'clock in the morning, the Sunday Tech Talk of Tech Forum. It's a bi-monthly activity. Tech Forum is not very old. It's just few months old, but we have already started the activities in a full swing, and there's a good response coming up. So be a member and support this noble activity. Today's presentation will be on 10 commandments of product development. Friends, so far we have heard young entrepreneurs who successfully developed and marketed their products. But there is a secret behind developing a first time right product. And I realized the power of this tool when I was working with Vinyan Ashram Power, where I requested Mr. Vijay Ghati to give a presentation, and we developed one product there successfully. Recently, all the 10 commandments are used about 8 months back. In December, we gave a project to a college going student, engineering student, final year, and he successfully developed weather station for every school project. And one such weather station is already installed. Second one is in the process of installation. So if you use this mantra of 10 commandments, you can successfully develop a product without much mistakes. I can say much mistakes because you can't make a zero mistake. And these tips are very much useful, and they have generated or come out of a lot of efforts and experience of Mr. Vijay Ghate, who has successfully worked with Philips India and many other companies, and he has created these 10 commandments. I have already shared his biodata and other details, so I will not spend time repeating it. We will keep that and reserve that time for question and answer. So, Mr. Vijay Ghate, you have 40 minutes for the presentation. You can have 5 plus minus some time, no issues. And then we will have the question answer session, and program will be closed by 11 a.m. in the morning. So thanks a lot, everybody, for joining and attending. I hand over the microphone to Mr. Vijay Ghate. Vijay ji, please start your presentation.
Good morning, everybody. As Vilas explained, I have spent quite some time in industry, more than what I like to remember sometimes, more than 45 years. All this time has been related to product development one way or other. So starting from myself being a developer, then leading development teams, managing development laboratories, then directing technology activities and advising on product development to several large and small companies. Throughout this, so as they say, I have a lot of grease under my fingernails. Throughout this journey, I kept thinking on what works and what does not work, and sometimes hampers product development activities. So then I kept on listing several points, and then kept on abstracting those points to higher levels, and I came up with a list of 10 points which I thought are a necessary condition for successful product development. I am using the term necessary because only this will not suffice to make sure that the product development is successful. There are market situations, there are external factors, but of course, if you follow these 10 guidelines, you can mitigate several external situations as well. Also, my experience has been mostly related to electronics, embedded software, hardware, and in later half of my career, computer software, both business applications and industrial applications. So the examples that I can quote are normally from this domain, but I also discussed these concepts with several other friends who are working in other domains, and they also agree that suitably modified, these concepts also apply to all other types of developments like mechanical engineering, even pharma. There is one interesting factor I observed. We use the term research and development, R&D, quite frequently. So the R&D is that really, does that really go together? I decided to analyze these terms, and then I found that research normally deals with natural phenomena. So to further the frontiers of knowledge about natural phenomena, and development normally means to create solutions for identified needs. So if you see on left-hand side of this slide, the famous apple falling, I don't know whether it is a true story or not, but it is reported. And from famous apple falling incidents of Sir Isaac Newton up to the gravitational waves imaginative picture that you see here, all that is definitely a research. On the right side, you see starting from one of the great product developers and who actually started product development activity, so to say, Thomas Alva Edison, who invented lamp, going up to iPhone. Normally, all the commandments that I'm going to talk about apply to the right side of this continuum, the development activity. Research, first, I think there's hardly any research in our country, bold statement probably, but there is quite some development activity one way or other. Let's try to distinguish these two things a little further before I come to the subject. So I just listed several characteristics of this research and development. In research, the domain of research is normally natural world. Development, the domain is artificial world. You are trying to create something which does not exist. There is a need, but there is no solution. So you are trying to create a solution for a need. The solution did not exist. The method of work in research is normally start from a hypothesis or a theory, do some experiments, analyze the results, and if you have proven your hypothesis or if your theory is proven, then good, otherwise repeat. While in development, the activities normally are first conceptualized when there is a solution, when there is a solution required, conceptualize the solution, then do detailed design, then do prototypes, test, and if successful, fine, otherwise go back to starting from concept to design to prototype, whatever. The values of people and of the activity differ. In research, the value is objectivity, rationality, and neutrality, while in development, the topmost value is customer empathy, walking in customer shoes, then practicality, your solution must be implementable, and ingenuity, because you are working on something which does not exist. You require to think creatively and find solutions, then prove them. The concern of research is the truth, whether what you have found is really true explanation of natural phenomena, while the development, probably the concern is appropriateness, whether the solution is appropriate for the need. The time span for these activities is different. In research, they say it is the infinite horizon project. There's never an end. If you remember the apple falling up to gravitational waves, it has taken more than 400 years, and the work still continues. while in development, probably the horizon is finite. You need to find out solutions within a reasonable time. Otherwise, nobody would be interested in the solution. Many times funding in research is a public funding, while in development activity, it is definitely commercial funding. That means somebody wants to finally make money from the products which are developed, sell the products, and continue the business. Thinking of people working in these two activities, in research activity, I would say there's a scientific thinking, and for development activity, you require design thinking. This word is becoming quite popular these days. It means the way designers think, and this word is now becoming common to general management concepts when there are problems related to any situation, be it manufacturing situation, be it human situation. How can you think ab initio and find solutions? So that's where the design thinking is becoming a common word as a general management word as well. Of course, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, do all designers really do design thinking? So some of the points that I'm going to present, they would help designers to think like designers. Now, with this introduction, I want to move to our main 10 points. The first point, and I think the 10 points that I mentioned, they are not necessarily in any priority, but the first and last point, I wanted to mention it as a first and a last point. I'll explain why. A disciplined approach is essential for any product development to succeed. Newton had once said that genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Well, about product development as well, we could talk about similar figures. It's 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration. The figures may be different in different situations. So if you don't follow disciplined approach, the perspiration will be so much that there is no time, no energy left for real inspiration. So I said, without discipline, the perspiration will overwhelm and kill inspiration. And that's the reason discipline is important. Second important point is, we can talk about what is discipline, but first of all, discipline is a mindset. And that's the crux. Everybody working on product development must have a discipline as a part of his mindset. It cannot come from outside. It cannot come from any ISO 9000 type of system or any documentation and so on. All this should be part of mindset. That's important. At a practical level, the discipline in product development probably includes a process approach, a well formulated process, and documentation. I only mentioned these 2 points, which I think need to be mentioned. So a process approach, when I talk about, there are 2 different aspects that I want to point out. One is a company level processes. These are what the standards like ISO 9001 and others prescribe. But many times we find that in spite of being ISO 9001 certified, the product developments are not successful. And there come the most important point, the personal processes of all people working on product development, which I think are more important for development professionals. Without these personal processes being in place, and I'll talk about it a little later. I'll take an example, not related to development, but something else. Without personal processes in place, company level processes don't work. They're not successful. Talking about documentation, I have thought about 3 different types of aspects of documentation. First aspect is know what is to be done to produce something that you develop, know how to do it, and know why. I think these 3 important aspects of documentation developers must keep in their mind. There's a picture here of a company level process. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It is based on phase gate approach. And I think these slides will be shared by Vilas. So you could look at it later. But I'm going to talk about personal processes, and the example of personal processes, one of the extreme examples that I heard about is what they call shuhari, which is Japanese concept. The concept is from martial arts. So the first level, shu, means do as told, no questions asked. So day in and day out, when a developer comes to office or to wherever the product development is carried out, what he should do. For example, he should first think about what is the problem that he is solving today. Does he know all the requirements? If he does not know all the requirements, go and ask. After he knows all the requirements, first design. Design is a big term, which means find subcomponents, see how they should fit together, and so on, and build a prototype, small prototype, big prototype, whatever. Test it. If it works, proceed further, proceed for the next day, next week's work. Otherwise, go back. These 4 or 5 steps should be in the mind of a developer all the time. So, and not forgetting to do any of them, like do as told and no questions asked. This is quite difficult in our culture and also Western cultures for 2 different reasons. In our culture in India, we are used to breaking rules. So right from childhood, we see people going through red signals and not stopping at pedestrians crossings and so on. While in many Western cultures, before doing any work, people ask questions, a lot of questions about why this way, and so on. So it's not easy to practice. Then the next level is ha. So if you follow this do as told approach, at some level you start understanding the theory behind why that particular approach. And if you understand the theory, then you develop a maturity, mastery to adapt the methods to your own needs. Very few people reach that mastery level. Most people remain at shoe level, but that's all right. They have to understand it and follow the processes. I think this is a little bit obscure example, but it very well sums up what is the discipline. I remember a question that, at my time when we were in college, the NCC training was compulsory. So the instructor asked the question, discipline kya hai? He asked the question to everybody. Nobody could answer. So finally he gave the answer, discipline ek kawaii hai. That's how armies think. Discipline is a drill first. So practice the drill, no questions, and then you can think and improve it. I'm going to leave time for questions later on. So many of these concepts, you can have disagreement or you can have questions. We'll discuss it later. Last 15 minutes, as Vilas said. So I already mentioned documents, know what, know how, and know why. This know why is extremely important. Rationale for design decisions, like why a particular component was chosen, why a particular architecture was chosen, why a particular specification was left to firmware and not taken care of in hardware. All this why during product development activities, these whys are lost. So after some time, if time comes to change or improve a particular part of a product, then one can take risky decisions without knowing the whys of product development. Where this is to be documented, I think that depends on each individual team, but it should be somewhere. It can also be in designers' notebooks, which are later on retained as a part of documentation related to a development project. The second point is uncertainty. We have heard many times that first freeze the specifications and then begin development activity. I think it's a myth. Specifications cannot be frozen because nobody knows all the specifications when you start development. In fact, if during the development project, if specifications don't change, then I think you are missing something. You are not talking to customers often enough, or customer is not thinking, and so on. So the flexibility that is required to accommodate changing specifications must be built into design. Modularization, committing features to firmware, and as few features as possible to hardware. Then when one talks about softwares, there are several guidelines for software development called solid guidelines. One has to anticipate when you start product development activity, out of this, what can change? Where is a lack of clarity? And I should prepare for a change. And of course, when there is a change, one needs to manage and control changes during development and later. I have seen too many times developers changing a component on their prototype, on their printed board, not noting it down, and later on forgetting that this component was changed, and then it goes to production without the change applied. This third point, do not lose speed and sense of urgency. What do I mean by that? You see three different trajectories here. On y-axis, your achievements. On x-axis, your time. The middle straight line is steady progress till you reach the target. This is impossible in development activity. This is possible in, say, construction activity, possibly, where you keep on laying bricks on a brick and then house is built. So more routine activities, even there, this straight line like this is not possible. The lower line, which shows slow progress in the beginning and then attempt to make large progress towards end of the project. This is what normally happens in many development projects. But then you do not reach your target. You need to compromise on quality. You need to launch semi-finished products. You need to launch products where some vitals are missing and so on. So this lower line also, that is not the way a development can proceed. But unfortunately, a lot of developments happen like this. I have talked to several developers. The tendency is do simple things first and leave difficult things for later. Now, why so? Some people tell me that if you do simple things first, then you can show something to customer very early. And then they know, they think there is a progress, but it's only that they think. If most difficult things are left at the end, then you never know when you finish them. So this top approach is what works, what is likely to work in development activity, in product development activity. About first 20% of the time, if you achieve 80% of the completion, at least, now this is not necessarily how many features completed, but most difficult things are tackled in first 20% of time. Then you get enough time later on to refine and to talk to customers, to do field trials, so that the product is ruggedized. This point, 80-20 point, is sometimes these days called as a MVP, minimum viable product, especially common in software industry. So decide what features are most important for customers and offer them, go to market. That's because all product development activities make some assumptions about what customer really would like to have. If those assumptions themselves are wrong, then you can forget about succeeding. So it's important to start getting customer feedback very early, even going to market in a controlled way, so that products are actually put to use. Then you have a chance to modify your fundamental assumptions, and if they're right, then you go further and add more features, refine the improve reliability, improve packaging, and whatever. The lean startup concept these days, that is where the product minimum viable product concept first came in. I think this is worth paying attention in other fields in hardware and so on also. Then fourth point is, when you are stuck, ask for help. Too many times I have seen that if there is a problem during development, developers keep on testing. And if you find what they are testing, they are doing same thing again and again. So I had to tell people that even if you measure that voltage 10 times, or even if you look at the waveform 10 times, you are not going to solve it. At least try new things every time. First important point is you need to realize that you are stuck. So simple rule, if you can't find solution in a certain time, now how much is that time depends on whether you are developing hardware, whether you are developing software and firmware. Go and talk to someone. Go and look up. Go and talk to your colleagues. Go and talk to your supervisors and so on. But don't keep on working if you are not making progress. Also, it is important to realize that product development is a team effort. Team can be 2 people, 3 people, whatever. But there's nothing wrong in asking for help. Collaboration is important. And knowing that you are stuck, I am not finding a solution. That's important. And that happening that in time is important. The next point is apply what you learned to new situations. First of all, many development projects are multidisciplinary. They combine several disciplines like electronic hardware, electronic firmware, computer software, mechatronics, and so on. And of course, the domains in which the products are used are also very diverse. It is interesting that what we learn in electronics, we can apply that in mechatronics. We can apply that. I'm going to give you 2 examples. We can apply that even in pharmaceuticals sometimes. Mechatronics, I was involved in developing acoustic products like microphones, loudspeakers for quite some time. Those components, there is a concept of electronic analogy. So you can model those components in terms of resistors, capacitors, and inductors. And the response of those components can be easily calculated from RCL circuits, and then you can modify them. Completely different situations, mechanical vibrations against electronic circuits. Example from pharmacy. When a new drug is developed, you need to decide the dosage of the medicine. So how frequently in a day and how much? So like 3 times in a day, 20 mg. From these figures, there are some rules of thumb in pharmaceutical industry. They call a half-life of the drug, they measure it. The point is, when a drug is taken, within some time, like 1 hour or so, the level of drug in blood spikes to a high level, and then it is absorbed in the body. So level in the blood reduces. Now this spike and reduction is like a RC circuit, exponential decay and exponential rise. And the requirement is the highest level in the blood is not harmful to the patient, and the lowest level in the blood still is able to kill the bacteria, so to say. Based on this, on these concepts, simple RC circuit charge and discharge, one can decide what should be the dosage based on the body weight and how frequently. I don't think this is done every time in pharmaceutical industry. There are rules of thumb based on this concept primarily. Also, what problems I faced on one project, one should never forget them. There must be a way to capture them somewhere. Things like talking about electronics. What is to be done to unconnected pins on an integrated circuit? For example, if you are using a quad op-amp operation amplifier, there are only 2 operation amplifiers used. What is to be done to other 2 operation amplifiers? What should you do with the pins? If you keep them open, you are definitely going to have problems because those op-amps can oscillate and there can be interferences and so on. Or in a microprocessor, unutilized pins, whether they should be tied to ground, whether they should be shorted, whether they should be tied to a power supply. Sometimes the data sheets of devices talk about this, but otherwise you need to find it out from your own experience and remember it. So then what can you reuse? You can reuse the knowledge, like solutions to problems that you found earlier. You can reuse them across application domains. Then technology is used for finding solutions. Important is portability of knowledge across project and across disciplines. Next point is try out new things and conquer fear. I'm going to make a bold statement. Most of the product development, and especially when you talk about electronics, 90% of circuit, there's nothing new. It has been done, even more than that. It has been done in the world. It has been done by yourself. It has been done somewhere else. It is there in literature. But still, there are some peculiar things that you require for your own environment, your own requirements. And there you need to try out new things. We are afraid to try out new things because we are afraid of failures. There is nothing wrong in failing. It may not work, but you can try something else. Only those designers become successful who understand what is not known, what needs to be tried out, and sometimes offbeat solutions need to be found. I'll give an example here related to my own situation. I'm not going to name the companies. Some of you might remember the old slide projectors and overhead projectors. There's a company here manufacturing one such product in collaboration with an international company. The product uses halogen lamps. Halogen lamp have a peculiar requirement. A 24-volt halogen lamp, it cannot withstand more than 25 volts. Now in India, the voltage varies sometimes from 160 to 300, 160 to 280. If you use a simple rectifier, then at one end, the halogen lamp is going to get higher than specified voltage, so it will fail. And at a lower end of voltage, it's going to be not white enough, yellow. People don't like it. So the company commissioned someone to design a sort of switch mode power supply for them. And instead of really doing a switch mode power supply, they created an inverter, which is a square wave inverter, pulse width modulated. I hope many of you are from electronics. I know many of you are from electronics, so you would appreciate this. They developed a pulse width modulated inverter. It worked okay, go very well in laboratory, but in the field, the halogen lamps kept failing. So we started going into depth, and then it occurred to me that halogen lamp works on heat principle, right? The filament is heated, so and it becomes white hot at a particular temperature. Now, for heating, you require a RMS voltage to be constant. In pulse width modulated signal, your RMS voltage can go very high. The average voltage is still constant. So it occurred to me that we must make sure that the PWM signal does not maintain the average voltage constant, but RMS voltage constant. So we looked in literature, there's no solution. There's nowhere this was mentioned. At least I did not find it. So then we decided that in the feedback loop, we use a multiplier to take the square of the output signal to get a mean square. So we use a multiplier, but that was expensive. So we thought, what else can we do? And we realized the sort of RMS behavior with a network made from 3 diodes and 3 resistors, a sort of piecewise linear approximation, which kept the RMS voltage constant within 23.5 volts to 24.5 volts. So when we offered this to the company, they asked us what is the cost implication. So we had to tell them the cost of idea we can't code, but the components are maybe less than $1. So if you have a problem, think out of box. That's what he's pointing out to. Don't let fear of failure hold you back. Then 7th point is explore, experiment, and prototype. So when you think about new things, of course, you need to test it on smaller blocks, prepare prototypes for anything, prepare experiment properly and test properly. Don't be afraid to throw out the prototype itself. That's one of the advice that I would like to give to all product developers. There's tremendous tendency to reuse the prototype components. Only retain the idea, because you need to optimize the idea for productionizing. Sometimes prototypes are crude, even components are crude. So leave out the prototype itself, throw away if required, but retain the learning from prototypes. And then pay attention to details. read between the lines. If you are looking at the data sheet, there are many things on the data sheet and in application notes which you tend to miss. So understand the data sheets. In fact, I somehow sometimes feel that people are losing the ability to read the data sheets and interpreting what is being said. Calculate, measure, simulate various scenarios and test everything. These calculations, I think they are becoming more and more difficult in today's complex situations, but still you need to do it. There are too many copy-paste design efforts. So many manufacturers these days publish reference designs. You try to take them as they are without going into details of why a particular component are chosen, whether it will fit your situations and so on. Don't measure enough and hope that because this is published by a company and it is printed in data sheet, it will work. I think you need to be careful there. Simulating actual use scenarios is important.
Hello, Mr. Ghat.
Yeah.
Your screen is not visible. Is there something which?
Vilas, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, everything is visible. Check up at your end only.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay.
Okay. So simulate actual use scenarios. The actual use scenarios can be noise, can be RF interference, can be varying voltages, can be mechanical vibrations, whatever. Try to simulate those scenarios and test during development. Now, just last point about the details. I have seen many times that during product development, when a prototype is to be tested, developers do the same type of testing that is done on production line in a finished product testing. It is important to know that what goes in production at least has worked sometime, while what is being developed has never worked. So there have to be different tests carried out during development. Only doing a burn-in test and saying that my design is reliable is just not adequate. There are many things can be said about this which are specific to a situation. But remember, the production tests are not adequate to catch problems in development. Then next point is, do not ignore any failures during product development. All failures seen during product development, whether it is a component failure, whether it is not meeting a particular specification, whether it is timing problem, whatever, do not ignore it as a random failure. This happens too often. That's because developers have what is called a confirmation bias. They very quickly come to conclusion that what they have developed works, while the challenge is finding out situations where your design will not work. And that only developers can do, no one else can do. And all the failures that you have ignored during development, and more than those failures, will come back to you, will come back to haunt you during production, or worse, after going to field. So don't ignore any failures. Try to simulate situations of failure. Try to make your design fail and take care of those situations during development itself. The last point I'm coming to is go and see. Japanese people call it gemba, go and see. This is because asking customers what is their requirement is not enough many times. The customers may not tell you the real needs because even they are not aware of real needs. So what you need to do is go to the place of usage, do keen observations, how people are doing their work at present, what are the difficulties they are facing in their present situation, and whether your product will solve their difficulties or it will compound their difficulties. Very important to know. This provides pointer to real needs. I'll give two examples here. One, we were developing certain equipment for mine communication. So I decided to actually see what is the place of usage. And I went to Dhanbad and went into a coal mine, a deep coal mine, I think 1 kilometer deep, to find out what is the real environment there. And I was stunned to see the amount of coal dust that you come across. And then where all it can enter in your products, all the grooves and slots and such things. And then it can short circuit on your printed boards and product will stop working. In fact, very interesting thing was our industrial design department in Philips, who designs the product ergonomics and so on, were primarily from consumer electronics background. So they used to make beautiful designs with nice contours, some nice grooves, and nice looks and so on, very sleek buttons. But if you put such a product design in coal mine, the grooves will fill up within 1 hour with the coal dust. And the miners there don't have time to use their fingers to operate the buttons. They want to use their palm. So I think that you learn when you actually go and visit. There are several such examples, but I'll take an example from software industry. We were designing a software for sort of ERP, and it had a store system in it. So I told my team, which was designing store system, to go in a stores of a production unit, sit there and see what people do. And their work should come down by 50%, and accuracy of their records must go up by 90%. That was the target. They realized they found many things which were wrong in the way they are thinking. This is in fact quite unfortunate situation many times, that designers have never left their air-conditioned environment, not necessarily air-conditioned, but their office environment. They have never gone and seen the actual usage. I think this is vital. And I think that brings to end, Vilas, am I in time to open for questions?
Yeah, definitely. If we are finished, then we can open.
Yes, I'm done. Thank you very much. And we are open for questions.
Keep the floor open for question and answer. First, identify yourself and then ask the question.
Mr. Gate, this is Ashok Biltikar here,
Yeah, hello.
your ex-PIF
Yeah,
colleague.
hello.
Okay. So, see, you mentioned the importance of the personal processes, and typically that is the area which I believe that most of the, I come from software industry, but most of the
Yes, I
software
know.
industry
Yes.
do not focus on it, and that is where they focus on the organizational processes or the development processes, etc. But because personal processes lack, I think the effectivity of the end results are not good. So what do you recommend? How do we focus and create a better adoption of the personal processes by the team members?
Okay, I'll give first some background on this that I know. I think you would have heard the term PSP, personal software process.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Which was a methodology invented or found by Software Engineering Institute, Carnegie Mellon University. They have a very nice training on related to that. I don't know whether it is still on, whether it still continues. There they used to give classroom lectures on what is the personal process. They used to give 10 different exercises to the developers, starting from first problem exercise to be done, programming exercise to be done with their current process, just estimation.
Okay.
So how much time you will take and how much actual time they took. And then slowly they used to graduate and add process improvement points like how to avoid defects, how to do personal code review and such things. And up to 10th exercise, it was found that the industrial strength software, people at least appreciated what is it. I don't know whether that training is still on, but there is a sufficient literature available, and we can talk about it later.
Sure.
If there is some, if you can do some reading about PSP if you like, and you can also talk to your people about that. But of course, the software development, the personal process for every developer has to be understand requirements, first design, then build, do unit testing, and then submit for testing. This has to be done religiously.
Correct.
I think people miss design. They just start coding, and then they don't do adequate unit testing. Confirmation bias, they do some small testing way they like, and they just submit for testing.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
the nutshell.
that is true.
Hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, very much. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Ghate.
Good morning.
This is Sachin Sangaonkar from MIPS Automation.
Okay.
We are an industrial automation company working in this field since 25 years. I just want to ask you a few things, basically. See, concepts are many to be introduced right now in India. Okay.
Right.
And more of for large scale industries, many people are there to work for, like Indian multinational. Okay. But there are certain sectors like micro and nano scale industries, okay, which need to be lifted up actually. And
Yes.
for this, the main hurdle is, see, right now, there are two sections which need to hold hand very rightly. Like, and I'm talking in terms of automation, like an electronics industry and an IT industry. Okay.
Yes.
If they are able to hold hands, then definitely many things are possible ahead. But right now, the hurdle is the IT industry, like even for very minor things, like they have got certain procedures and many steps which they say that these are involved, and the cost, what are initial costs which are involved, really lay off all the concepts down. Nothing moves ahead. So, like, have you figured out any ways out or any way out of this, basically?
I think what I believe is in such situations, like Industry 4.0, that's what you are referring to probably.
Sir,
it's
not
important
exactly 4.0, but exactly what happens
Maybe.
is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It is important to have integrated groups where the electronic team and the software teams, they work together, they appreciate each other's work,
Absolutely.
and they don't live in their own silos. I think that's important. There are some companies doing that. Yes, but I understand what you mean, and especially software teams, they really don't appreciate the real world. They are somewhere.
Yes, they are
I
at
agree
some
with you.
other level, is what they suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that level is higher or where, but they really don't have appreciation of real world. I think there are many reasons there.
Yeah. No, sir, because see, India is a big sea, basically, because they really don't understand the projection in terms of business, what is possible. Okay. Like they only look for something which is short term. So that's why I just wanted to understand from you, have you formed out any groups of people, like IT people also involved in it, like which we can tie up with and get something more developed? Like we have got a lot of concepts in mind. I'm
Okay,
core electronics, BE electronics, basically.
Yeah.
And we have done a lot of concepts. Even for research, we have done.
Currently the company that I'm advising in my biodata, I think that is similar company which works with the cross domains, starting from hardware, embedded software, computer software, and so on. We are trying to do some things, but I think it is tough to bring them together. But I think we can talk separately about this sometime.
Hello.
If you can share me your mail ID or contact details, I'll definitely have a word with you.
Hello.
I will.
Hello. I am Anil Chaitanya. I am an IT person working for long period in this industry, and I have to share some good things about it. That basically, IT designers, that is application designers, and core engineering designers need to sit together and share fairly each other concept, though they realize that other party can't understand. The purpose of this is what happened. Engineering designer thought in his mind that others, this is an engineering concept and IT can't understand. No one else can understand because they have spent huge long period of their life to work in this field. The same way IT people is in their mode that they feel that this is an application area. We need to work hard on that. And in this scenario, both of them lose sharing right information to each other. And that's the actually seed of this problem. I have interacted with a couple of engineers for this and asked them to share exactly in a raw word whatever they are developing. And then I started concluding that stuff in language of IT and it got resolved. I feel this could be one of the solution which I have applied in my practical life. That's I would like to be share here. Thanks. I'm over.
Yeah,
Thank you, Anil.
I need to
Thank
add
you, Anil. You
something
have
here,
said.
sir. Hello. Sorry.
Neil-
Sorry to interrupt, sir.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, I need to add something here. Like, see, very well understood. Like IT people need to be explained every detail. But the problem here is we are not able to reach the developer directly. Here, there are many steps involved. Okay, there are some marketing, lead generation people, and what happens is whatever is to be conveyed doesn't reach the developer. So here, that bridge needs to be gapped because these intermediate people don't understand anything out of it. A developer definitely can understand things, but these really create a lot of chaos. This entire middle team, and definitely we don't end up into anything at all. Like so,
I know.
Okay,
more.
friends, Srirang Gokhale has raised his hand. He is asking something. Over to Srirang Gokhale.
Thank you, Vijay, for giving a very structured presentation. I felt like, like your schoolmates we meet after a long time.
Yeah.
So in such a group, almost I'm meeting you as a designer. But your experience post Philips has been phenomenal and a lot of learning from your presentation. I have
Thank you,
a lot of
Srirang.
questions which I will separately discuss with you. But one question which is bothering me is, the software discipline is trying to dominate the design world. That means the design thinking is software focused. You showed one slide showing that, you perfect your design by measurement, simulations and all. But the design thinking says that, fail fast, have iterations, use customer as your piggy, as a test, and keep on iterating. That is actually difficult in case of a hardcore product development, not software development, hardcore product development. So this design thinking has to be slightly modified for, maybe I'm old school of thought, but it needs a sort of a blending. That's what I feel.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Srirang. I'm also old school of thought in a way, but I interacted with new people. This agile and all this iterative work and so on, I think it's going beyond
Yes.
what is reasonable now.
Yeah.
And there are situations agile can work only if strict discipline is followed, and it cannot work if it is taken as a do what I like type of
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
That slowly some people at least are realizing. And as I said, design thinking is more a mindset, more a way of thinking, can be applied anywhere. And the speed and the quick fix situations, I think minimum viable product and so on, they are not applicable in the same way to all domains.
Yes.
The application is different. Like, for example, if you look at Japanese companies earlier, they used to launch a new product every 3 months with small changes.
Yes.
That's agile, right? In a way.
Yes.
So I think it has to be applied to a particular work and the domain of work.
Yeah.
And in hardware design, you can't iterate.
Yeah.
If I unfortunately just by some keystrokes you can solve a software problem, but you cannot solve a problem on a printed circuit board by few keystrokes. You need to order a new printed
Correct.
board, order a new component. That needs to be realized by people. Yeah.
Agree.
Okay, Aparna has some question now. Aparna, then Vishwas Kale and Satyajit Sathe. Aparna, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, all. I'm Aparna Joshi. I'm working with Vishay in the power capacitor design, and we are developing some capacitors for like locomotive and the traction applications. And I completely agree with Gokhale, sir, that iterations and rechanging and every time preparing the prototype and testing, it's a very long process, and we cannot go for multiple iterations for a product development. But what I think we are missing here is some test facilities also, because we are looking for some like testing with respect to IRIS standard or some smoke test for a particular material based on the hazard levels and all that. And I could find that we are missing here for the facilities for testing. So this has to be bridged out because as sir says, we cannot neglect any single failure in a prototype. But to identify and to work on a failure during a prototyping or a product development, we need some test facilities also to be developed hand in hand to work with the electronic industry. And that I think we are some way having a gap here. Okay, I know the innovation hub and all the testing facility or some small efforts are being done in this regard, but still a long way to go for this.
Yes, but maybe instead apart from compliance testing facilities, one can think of pre-compliance facilities which are sort of jugaad, if I say, but at least give some idea about what happens. We had done some things like that for EMI, EMC, and then flash testing, and then brown in, brown outs, and so on. Lab level, simple circuits which we could apply. The specific solutions will be different, but I think we still need to do some crude facilities, if I may say so, to at least do some testing before we go for compliance.
Exactly, sir.
I
Exactly.
agree
We are trying to do the same in our Vishay lab also, because just to create a resonating circuit or to have some transformer which is like somewhere related to, or at least in line with our requirement, maybe somewhat a little less, and then we can extrapolate the outcome by checking how much current it will lead, and just like that. We are doing it in the same way, but I think we can improve in this regard also through our group.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Aparna. Let's go to Vishwas Kale.
Mr. Ghate, you have given very good presentation, and
thank you.
Many entrepreneurs like us can learn from this also. Some missing links are there. A small, very humble suggestion. If you could have shared some failures, failure studies during your presentation. If you do X, this happens. If you don't do X, this will not happen. I think that will drive the point home a little better than you would have thought. It's only what I wanted to share. That's all.
Thank you very much for your suggestion. I've seen many failures, not many, but I've seen some failures. So I think I should add them as a part of experience. I agree with you completely. Thanks for your suggestion.
Hello.
Okay, Satyajit Sathe.
Yeah, hello, Satyajit Sathe here. Thank you, Mr. Gate, for a very nice presentation. And for others' information, I may add that Mr. Gate has been my boss, mentor when I was with Philips. Mr. Gate, one thing you used to always say, so if you can elaborate on that, it is related to the slide which you showed that 80-20% means achieve 80% within 20%. So there you used to say always that build your prototype fast. So I think that goes with that. So if you can please expand on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Satyajit mentioned the build prototype fast. In Philips, we used to say, पहला आवाज बत्ती दिखाओ, नहीं तो एक वेवफॉर्म दिखाओ, ऑसिलोस्कोप पे वेवफॉर्म दिखाओ, बाद में बात करो.
Yes, absolutely.
Make a box and make something visible so that I can improve on it. I think it goes a long way if you build a working benchtop prototype very early, because then you can get a test platform for continuing to work and improving your performance and so on. Don't wait for entire mechanical housing to be available, but start meeting many of the specifications very early, many of the features added, many of the specifications very early. I think that is very important. Thank you, Satyajit, for reminding me.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That was the last question, and I must thank everybody for participation today. It was a really interesting and interactive session. I must say, one of the best sessions so far. Friends, we meet every fortnight, and next meeting we have planned on 17th of October. We want more and more youngsters to come forward and share their success stories. Initially, if you see, we have shared the success story of young entrepreneurs, and now this is the presentation that how to develop a trouble-free product using 10 commandments. So thanks a lot for attending. Friends, please do join Tech Forum. We need your support and active participation. And definitely we appeal to the young generation to support, because we are there to guide, share our experience, and make sure that we become Atmanirbhar and have the indigenous product. So thanks a lot. We are going to meet on 17th for another and yet exciting presentation. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Vijay Ghate, for wonderful presentation today. And thanks a lot, all the participants. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.